Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers with Tricia Flanagan here on Campaign for America. It is 6:29 p.m. on the 14th day of January 2021. We want to welcome all of you from across the United States and around the world. We've gotten a lot of emails from residents of Australia, of other European nations, and we're so grateful that you have been following us. Tricia, I'm going to get right to the point. We got a lot to unpack, and we have a real special guest coming on a little later. The other night, in fact, for the past couple of weeks, you and I have been warning our viewers that there would come a time when Facebook and other social media platforms might remove us from broadcasting. And I believe that time has come. Certainly, they have, it appears that they have completely swept us off of Facebook. Now, I just stalled a little bit because now I'm a little confused over something. We were, our social media broadcasts are not on the Facebook page, are not on there. Several people have, brought this to my attention, and I looked myself. But it seems like right now we are broadcasting live on Facebook. So my guess is we're going to go live on Facebook right now, and they're going to look at what we have to say, and then they're just going to throw us right off. So folks, we are encouraging you, and we will send you this information via email. I've gotten a few hundred emails already because we did put it out on Twitter to email us so we could give you the social media platforms that we will be broadcasting from in the event that any of these other platforms throw us off. So there is, in my view, a global war by big tech against conservatives. Now, we're being challenged over the fact that we're calling this a free speech issue. Well, to me it is. I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you, Tricia, it's certainly a discrimination issue. When you throw conservatives off these platforms and allow liberals, socialists, communists, and by the way, representatives of the Iranian regime and the Chinese Communist Party, we have a real problem in this country. We are now living the clear and present danger that you and I and other conservatives have been talking about for years. And now our rights are not only being taken away, they're being absolutely destroyed so that they never come back. Tricia.
Well, absolutely. This day has arrived, right? I mean, the censorship is in full force. I would argue that it's not just a censorship issue, it's a civil rights issue, because unless you apply all of the laws without bias, then, even allies like the ACLU, which would be a strange ally to have, but even that platform is stepping up and saying that this kind of censorship, singling out conservative voices, again, is not just wrong on a censorship standpoint, it's wrong on a civil and human rights standpoint. We're ready to push back, and we're ready for anything. I mean, we've been deplatformed in terms of the archived interviews, but we're happy that we're at least live streaming on Facebook. We're still on YouTube, and we're looking at other platforms to stay connected because it's more important than ever.
Now, something has occurred with Campaign for America, and we've been monitoring our outreach. And I'll tell you, we kind of knew this day was going to come when they would ban us either from Facebook or do what they did. They just completely wiped off our archives. We started, folks, with a viewing audience of about 500, and then it went to 600, and then 800. And to make a very long story short, this past week, 2 weeks, we broke a record of over 100,000 people viewing our broadcast. Last night, we reached approximately 35,000 viewing, and there are other broadcasts where they reach 75,000, and on and on and on. So as a result of the growth and the outreach and the response, I kind of felt in my heart that this honeymoon isn't going to last, because big tech, the liberals, the communists, the socialists, they're going to start looking, saying, these people got to go. Now, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't a wild theory, because I'll tell you what we found today, what Natasha found today in some of the research she did. I got the headline right here, is that big tech's censorship strokes global fears. Global, folks. It's not only happening here in the United States. And let me add this, the one common thread that big tech has committed with all of these banning of people off of their social media networks is this. It says right-leaning politicians in their country should be the most concerned that these platforms appear to be targeted. Why, folks? Because it is those who are leaning to the right, those who are leaning to the conservative values in which we all cherish. We're the ones being targeted. It's right there in print. So this tells me that there is indeed an effort to censor us. Now, that'll be up to the lawyers to decide. But in my view, it is clearly a violation of my free speech. I get it. I heard enough from these liberal lawyers today that, well, it's not a free speech issue. They're private companies. They could do what they want, say what they want. They're not public entities. Well, in my view, they're wrong, dead wrong. But at the very least, Tricia, if it's not free speech, which I believe it is, got to be discrimination. My goodness. How can you say to one group, you're allowed to use our store, if you will, right? You're allowed to walk into our store, but if you're gay, if you're black, you're thrown out. If you're conservative, you're thrown out. Is that not the same thing, or I'm just wrong?
So I think you're right. And a couple of things I'd love to unpack there. And I know Tim Howe, our guest, is a lawyer, so he can give us the legal context of this. But here is how I understand this policy-wise. And that is that, Facebook and Twitter and all of the social media platforms that are deplatforming conservatives, they're doing a Section 230 workaround. By that, I mean is they're functioning as a publisher, which does not give them private free market rights. A lot of the liberals are saying, well, this is like the bakers that don't want to bake for an LGBTQ wedding. Nothing could be further from the truth, because in a free market system, you have options. If you're not satisfied with one offering, you can go to another. But because Big Tech got this Section 230 status that was a protective mechanism, it actually gave them an entree into this monopoly that our American free system has never been about. We have the Federal Trade Commission to break up monopolies. Many of you may remember the AT&T breakup that occurred because of this very issue. And so because they're functioning, because Big Tech is functioning as a publisher, and because they have a monopoly, they are in this very unique space where we as consumers have very specific and special rights to access those platforms. There's nowhere else for us to go. So that's policy-wise. And I would also like to add on the measure of free and fair and equal treatment. There's been a lot of interesting posts today on my own timeline. If you go to my Twitter, I've called out Senator Chuck Schumer, who many months ago had called for, I'm going to read it to you. He said on the steps of the Supreme Court regarding Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Gorsuch, who were, that was when they were recently placed on the Supreme Court. He said, and I quote, "They will pay a price and won't know what hit them if they move toward these awful decisions." It was in regard to some legislation that was coming up to the Supreme Court regarding a pro-life piece of legislation. So that, combined with the fact that they're selectively censoring conservatives, I think we have the perfect storm of what we need to do to push back, making sure that our rights are preserved.
And as we've said all along, folks, we can actually address the problems, meet the challenges we're facing without protesting, without going to rallies, because I believe from here on in, when we ever protest, anarchists are coming, the bad actors are showing up, and that'll give the liberals, the communists, and the socialists, and whoever the opportunity to just criticize us and to call us as they have. Imagine we're terrorists now. American patriots are called terrorists. Tricia, weren't the colonists who fought the British called terrorists? I mean, this is history repeating itself all over again.
Well, look at the Boston Tea Party, for example. Look at, we have a First Amendment right to assemble. A protest is very different than a riot. And let's make no question about it. We have all along here at Campaign for America, we have denounced rioting. We have denounced the kind of violence that we are seeing. We stand with our president in saying that. This was never to be the case. It was never anything that we haven't called out. We called it out in the summer. We call it out now. Please, anyone that's listening, never, ever engage in violence. But the First Amendment protects our free speech and our right to assemble. There's a very, very big difference between what we have done historically as a country and as patriots in making sure that our voices were heard. Big difference there in the violence that we have seen of late. They're very different, and we stand with free speech, but never, ever with violence.
Now, here's something, ladies and gentlemen, that you may be unaware of. Some of you may be, but I would assume that many of you are not, because this just broke a few hours ago. I had tweeted this out, and Trish, we're going to talk about this a minute, and then we'll bring Tim Howes in to talk a little bit about this. First of all, I tweeted this out 8 hours ago. Campaign for America supports this, and this is what we have been talking about on this broadcast, that Republicans need to stop fighting each other, that they need to stand up together and fight the opposition. They need to fight the socialists. They need to fight the communists. We need to use the tools that they're using against us. And lo and behold, somebody must have heard us, because we support Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's a Republican from Georgia, newly elected. We support her position that she will be filing articles of impeachment against Joe Biden a day after the inauguration. Now, folks, she probably has what she believes is evidence that will allow her to move forward with articles of impeachment against Joe Biden. So now the liberals are all upset. Why are you doing this? You have no evidence. Well, they did this to President Donald Trump. God bless her. She's going to go after Joe Biden. Now, what really got the liberals and the communists and the socialists and the Democrats really irritated, when I added to my tweet that I can't wait to see charges be filed against Maxine Waters for what? For what? For inciting violence. Now, Lieutenant Steve Rogers, this is what I got today. How dare you? Where is your evidence? Now, you made a statement, Lieutenant Rogers. Where is your evidence? As I shared last night, my evidence is brought to me by CNN of all networks. I've got it right here, folks. And I talked about it last night. CNN reported on June 25th, 2018, headline, Maxine Waters encourages supporters to harass Trump administration officials. But she went a step further in her statement. And it wasn't only about harassing them. Her words were very, very clear. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out, you create a crowd, and you push back on them. And you tell them they are not welcome anymore, anywhere. Pushing back on them, you know what, Tricia, they like to define what's in the mind of the president or in the minds of conservatives when we speak. Well, you know what? I'm going to define what I truly believe was in her mind when she said push back. That to me was a suggestion to physically assault conservatives who worked for the Republican Party or the president. What do you think, Tricia?
Well, I think that this is spot on, and I'll tell you specifically why. First of all, let's look at the very, very slim margin of majority that the Democrats have in the United States House of Representatives right now. Nancy Pelosi has the slimmest margin for the Democrats that we've had since 1930. So, the Democrats have redefined what impeachment is. We didn't lead that charge. We were all for law and order and sanity and logic. But the Democrats yesterday, without going to the House Judiciary Committee to look at evidence and to debate the logic of filing articles of impeachment, they chose to forego that. And now they have, for the second time, produced this very flimsy and very whimsical definition of articles of impeachment. So if they are going to live by that standard as they charge our president, then they have to live by that definition as it applies to the members of that branch of Congress. And to your exact point, the evidence that you just presented, along with many other stories and anecdotes and hard pieces of evidence that were presented yesterday by everybody from Jim Jordan to Matt Gaetz to, as you just said, Marjorie Taylor Greene. We have a very new day in the United States House of Representatives. The Democrats are still the majority, but by one of the slimmest margins we've ever had in our US history. It is time that the Democrats are forced to live by the standard that they create.
As Tricia was speaking, I'm looking at the newsfeed, and Tricia, we have a new country that is tuning in, and it's an individual from Scotland. So we have Australia, we have Scotland, the Philippines, and I got to tell you, just about every state, people are putting up their states, and they're very proud Americans. So thank you all. Thank you all for listening. All right. You know, we talk about Republicans that don't have the courage to stand up, Republicans that are just busy fighting each other. And here we just talked about Marjorie from Georgia, who has been standing up and now is going to fight back. We do have courageous people here in New Jersey. And I've talked about some of them who are actually chairman or chairwoman of New Jersey GOP organizations from throughout the state. But we do have a very, very distinguished guest. His name is Tim Howe. Tim is actually the chairman, ladies and gentlemen, of the Somerset County, New Jersey Republican Organization. He joins us tonight as a conservative, but not only that, as a conservative, but an American patriot who truly, truly has his heart in the right direction. And Tim, welcome and thank you for joining us. I know you've been listening, so before we get on to your vision and the things you and I've shared about the Republican Party here in New Jersey and Somerset County, feel free to weigh in on what we've been talking about. I'm sure because you're an attorney, but also you're somebody who people are going to listen to because you're in the New Jersey GOP. You're there working hard. You're probably one of the first guests we have had on from the NJGOP. So Tim, I'm going to give you the floor.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Tricia. It's great to be here, and it's great to be in front of people from all over the world and all over the country. For those of you who are not in New Jersey, welcome from behind enemy lines here. The three of us are here in New Jersey. We are the dark shadow of Mordor hovers over this state. Steve and Tricia both have been good fighters for the cause here. And I think the important part of that is the cause. It has to be defined by principles, Steve. As far as what we need to rally behind and what we need to fight for, we can't fall into the trap of fighting over different individuals and have different individuals be the only thing that defines what we're doing. What I like about what you do and what I saw Tricia do last year, was it last year, Tricia? When did you run for Senate?
Yes, it was for the primary.
It seems like ages ago. And Tricia impressed, it seems like forever ago. Tricia impressed a lot of people is getting behind the cause, what we believe in, which is really freedom, free speech, all different modes of freedom. And this is being said by someone who read Atlas Shrugged when he was 17. That's where we need to unite. When I came into this chairmanship this year of the Somerset County Republican Organization, I saw something that I think is endemic in New Jersey is loyalty to the person was at the top. Now, I think loyalty to the person matters, but really loyalty to the beliefs that we stand for has to be on top. And that's really where we're headed here.
Tim, let's stop for a minute because you bring up a good point. Loyalty to the mission, the cause, certainly, but I've seen it here in New Jersey, and some others have seen it around the country. I'm going to leave Florida out of this because my wife and I have traveled down there 2-3 dozen times, and boy, I tell you, they got it right down there. I mean, they got something going there that we need to follow. But here's my question to you.
Okay.
I don't know if it's look, perception is reality, but people here in New Jersey, grassroots Americans here who want to get involved, feel disenfranchised. Conservatives, they feel pushed aside. They feel like that the party has never reached out to them. Now, I know you and I know other chair people in New Jersey who are county chairmen who have. You've done your best to reach out. But I mean, as a whole, what I'm hearing is all Republicans do in this state and perhaps other states is kill themselves. They commit political suicide, especially during the primary season. So can you address that and maybe share what you've done to try to bring grassroots people into Somerset County?
Well, That's a good insight, Steve. I saw that in Somerset County and beyond. And this goes back to, I would trace it almost back to the 1997 gubernatorial election, where Christy Whitman won narrowly re-election with a freedom loving conservative, Murray Sabrin, running as an independent, either as an independent or a libertarian, I forget which. She won that, and she went down to the Republican leadership conference and said, well, you can win without conservatives. And so it goes back to that, at least in my mind. And it's about, Steve, it's about doing it one person, one group at a time, and welcoming those people into what we're doing. I need scads of talent to try to win behind enemy lines here. Why would I turn down a Tricia Flanagan, who's brilliant and has areas of knowledge that I don't have? It's about bringing conservatives in one person at a time. It's about listening. I mean, here I am tonight, Steve.
Yes. Yes.
And last night, actually, either last night or the night before, I was on a Zoom with a conservative group. It's not about making conservatism the only voice in the party. That's not possible. It's about making grassroots conservatives know that their opinion matters, that their energy is needed, and standing by that.
But how, Tim, I know people are asking this question now. We at Campaign for America, we started with a minimum amount of people who were following us and watching us and emailing us. Now between Tricia and I, we've got over 150, 60,000 followers, thousands from New Jersey, thousands. And I hear the same thing over and over and over again, is that some of these people have reached out. All they get in the mail from the GOP is they want money, money, money. And yet we have people, as you said, who have skills and who have talents and who has the ability to move forward. And I'll give you an example. Tricia Flanagan is an example. I'll use her as an example because it's the most recent. She got over 80,000 votes in her bids for the Senate. She won 2 counties offline. And during the course of the congressional election cycle, not a phone call, not a letter, nothing from the GOP, not a word. When I ran for office, look, I ran and I won 3 times in Nutley. And of course, what I have found here is not locally, but I'm talking about statewide, is that I've gotten more invitations from GOPs around the country, especially Florida, to speak and to rally the troops than I have had here in New Jersey. Therein lies the problem. So The question is, now you got it right, all right, but you're in the county there. How do you as a county chairman and some of the other chair people who I've talked to who are of like mind with you, how do we just change this entire way we do things and truly open up our arms to people who want to get involved?
Well, to be clear, I wasn't a chairman at the time, but I remember some excellent conversations that Tricia and I had last spring or summer. I remember I was walking through one of our great trail system here in Peapack Gladstone. Steve, how do we make this go higher? Well, we need to make a change. Look, we made a change at the county level, and we're having a culture change. And that's not a criticism of my predecessor. He did what was right for the time. But we now need to make that change at the state level. And I can tell you, there'll be, there's some good people who've been at the state party. They got a little distracted perhaps with certain things that were going on. But the fact is, I think we'll have a little bit more influence after the June primary is over. And there'll be a new gubernatorial nominee, and there'll be new leadership at the state party. And it's a culture change. How does it happen? It happens when Tricia does what she does. When you do what you do, and I'm there. I'm there with you. And it needs to become more universal. When you go down to Cape May County, conservatives not a dirty word. They're all, it's open, it's a great thing. If you go down to Cumberland, even though they don't win as many elections down there, you look at Mike Testa, he does a lot of outreach. He ran as a conservative, and guess what? He won. He
Yeah, Mike,
won.
yes, Mike was one of the guys that did call me, and we did go down and we helped support him. Good conservative who speaks
Yeah.
out.
I go, and you know what? I go, so here's one of the things, that's a good example of, so we have a place in North Wildwood, a little condo, and about 50 minutes from there is the Eastland Golf Club. It's one of the townships in Cumberland County. And when my wife's sleeping late on a Saturday, I'll go up to Tessa's Saturday breakfast. And it starts with a flag salute. It starts with a blessing over the food. And, as he says, we kneel in prayer and we stand for, what did he say? Well, basically, we're not kneeling for the Star Spangled Banner. We're kneeling before
Yeah.
God.
Tim, the thing that we hear a lot from people is the lack of courage on the part of Republicans. And I agree. Look, I've voted for people who I thought had courage. But frankly, and these are my words, not yours, they're cowards. I mean, when they stand up in the United States Congress and condemn the president of the United States. Now, look, nobody's perfect, all right? The president is not perfect, but to condemn him and then to allow the liberals and the Democrats and socialists and the communists and whoever for 4 years just pound and pound and pound at him. And you only see very few. You see Jim Jordan, you see Ted Cruz, you see others. But now that he is being pretty much isolated, people from Mitch McConnell and others who you'd think would fight for the commander in chief. Look at the man is guilty of nothing. All of these and all of these things are not even being heard. Nobody in our side, the Republican side, is saying, "Hey, wait a minute. You know what? We're not going to tolerate this. We're going to stand up and we're going to fight with him." Instead, they turn their back on him, and I feel offended by that. Because some of the people who are doing that are people I voted for and trusted. So when they turn their back on him, I truly believe they're turning their back on the Constitution and they're turning their back on, again, grassroots supporters. That's the way I think a lot of people feel, and I wanted to convey that to you.
Now, I understand the feeling. And you know what gets me even more is this cacophony that, we got the radical socialist drumming up. Drowns out, leave the president's Twitter account out of this. Let's go back before last Wednesday. Substantial achievements in this administration. Substantial achievements, Steve, in this administration. When I wasn't the first on board with President Trump because I didn't think he was a conservative. You know what? He probably wasn't at that point. But I wanted 3 things. I said, all right, I'm in. 3 things. 1, cut the corporate tax. He did that, and it brought trillions of dollars back onshore that had to sit offshore because we had the highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world. 2, the judiciary. Knock the ball out of the park. 3, fix the VA because those heroes have fought in some of the most awful conditions, survived and come back. They need our help. The money's there. Get it done. It started. They better not abandon that.
But Tim, excuse me, but yes, he did all of that, and the great achievements. But you mentioned something before. I think it's very important to talk about. You talked about the liberals and others drowning out all the achievements, right? But Tricia, they're also drowning out all of the let's say the cries of the conservative Republicans. They're drowning us out, and at the same time, we're drowning each other out.
Yep.
And we need, Tim and Tricia, I'd like you to weigh in on this. We, the people who support the Constitution, we need to drown them out. We need to take over the conversation. And Tricia, I'll begin with you, and then Tim, I'll ask you to weigh in on this. What I'm hearing from the people, and I am in agreement with them, and you may not be in agreement with me, and that's fine. That's why we talk. They're looking for at least a pathway, a door they can open to put an end to a lot of the gridlock, the debates, a lot of what we see going on right now. And what we've done, Campaign for America, we've launched an effort to mandate term limits on every level of government, mandate them. I term limited myself. I don't know that Jack Ciattarelli, for example, he's a gubernatorial candidate here in New Jersey. We've endorsed him. He term limited himself. So what I'm saying is that term limits, you do away with the lobbyists, you do away with special interests, you do away with favors, You do away with these career politicians. And look I'm not going to put every career politician down. We got a lot of good ones that have really stayed to their word, but far too many are not like that. So the common ground that we may have, Tim, in beginning a conversation with Democrat conservatives is term limits. Tricia, you first, and then Tim, please weigh in. Tricia?
Sure. So if you can indulge me for a moment, I'd like to take this from a national framework down to the local level in New Jersey. So the first thing, I agree with so much of what Tim said, and I would like to add to the appeal that President Trump had to voters in America was his America First policy, especially as it pertained to the geopolitical situation that we're faced with. You know, Iran, China, Russia, all of these actors, North Korea, all of these actors are looking down and breathing down America's neck. And I think that, that's the nice little bow that President Trump put all of those initiatives, everything from taxation to the judiciary, he kind of wrapped it up into that larger scenario. So why does that matter? Why does that matter? And how do we link it from New Jersey to the larger picture in America? Well, first of all, New Jersey matters because Georgia mattered. Look at how we lost the Senate. Chuck Schumer, all America, we were looking at Georgia. As went Georgia, so went the Congress. New Jersey has 15 electoral college votes. That's worth like a bunch of the square states, right? And when we band together on the federal level, the governorship matters as well as the federal level. Let's look at New Jersey. We haven't had a federal win for Republicans, for conservatives in almost 50 years, since 1972. But I want to pick up on something that Tim said about the internal structure. You hearkened back to Christy Todd Whitman. I completely agree with you that that was the problem, but I couldn't disagree more with what Christy Todd Whitman said. You cannot win without conservatives in New Jersey. The 2.4 million unaffiliated voters skew conservative. Gallup showed that. When we focus on those voters, we don't need a crossover Democrat vote. And I think the problem has been that the NJGOP has gone quasi-liberal. They think that they have to pander to the Democrat vote. Nothing is further from the truth. You mentioned Mike Testa. He won by being an unapologetic conservative. And the icing on the cake is the 35% of already registered pro-Catholic Democrats who are ready to join our conservative cause. That's from Pew Research, one of the best research houses on the planet. If we combine those conservative voices from both sides, the conservatives win. That's the answer to how we take back our state for the GOP.
But Tricia, you brought up Christine Todd Whitman. She said that back then, but she became the poster person, if you will, in opposition to the president of the United States. She went on a tour, a national TV tour, damaged the Republican Party nationally, damaged the president's campaign, damaged the New Jersey GOP. And I was one of the people in this state, of a few, and I know you were too, that wanted her kicked right out from her rear end, right out of the GOP. After what she did to denigrate the president and to denigrate conservatives. But you see, this is my point. You got these politicians out there saying things that they think the people want to hear. And then once they get what they want, they boot us in the rear end. And this is the kind of stuff that's got to stop. Tim, before I get to you, folks, I'm going to ask you right now to get a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. Please do that right now. I'm watching something and I want to be able to give you something to write down. What I'm going to do is go to Tim, and then I'm going to share with you what I want you to write down. I hope we're still on the air. We're still rolling, but I'm just watching something right now. So Tim, we just talked about and gave an example of two things. One, the people are crying out for term limits to put to death all of this special interest and every other individual that's knocking out grassroots people. And secondly, Republicans, in this case, it was Christine Todd Whitman, who promised so much to so many and not only delivered so little, but went against us. Tim, it's your floor.
Thanks, Steve. Tricia, that was a great analysis. And it's something that we've been downhill ever since here in New Jersey. It was in the early 90s. We had a veto-proof majority in both houses of the state legislature, controlled 8 of the 13. Well, Republicans were elected to 8 of the 13 congressional seats. We won in places that you wouldn't even send campaign people into now. We are now at the bottom. My county, governed by conservative Republicans for 50 years, is all the county seats are held by Democrats now. That's going to change this year. Now, Steve, is to your to your point is term limits are something that, you've said it. I've heard it bandied about this week because you see what career politicians are doing down there. Term limits would be something that would work. Like you said, Jack Ciattarelli, he term limited himself on the Freeholder Board. He term limited himself in the state assembly, and the Constitution will term limit him as governor of New Jersey. And I think that's something that would cross party lines. I mean, that's something that you're not being liberal or conservative about. You're not appealing to Democrats by saying, "Oh, well, we'll do this that you love." It's something that crosses party lines, and I think should get embraced. I mean, if you remember the contract with America in 1994,
Right.
that involved many things, and term
And,
limits is
and,
one
and
of them.
Tim, to bring your point, it'll cross party lines. I'll tell you, I've been doing broadcast all week, and they're usually debating some Democrat liberal, and they're just hammering away. And then it happened last week, and it really resonated with me when one of the guys I was debating, he said, just give me one proposal, Lieutenant, one proposal where you and I could sit down and agree. Yeah, you conservatives, you want it all. You have no proposal. I said, I do. And he said, go ahead. Now, this is live on national television. I said, I think we can agree on term limits. And there was this silence. It was very interesting. And finally, the guy says, yeah, I could sit down at a table across from anybody and talk about term limits because I agree. And that showed me, and to your point, Tim, that it brings the fact that at the end of the day, aside from the communist influence and socialists and all these progressives and liberals, there are Democrat conservatives who love this country. And they're going to look towards us because we're the courageous ones who have stood up and who have fought and fought and fought. So I believe that the Democrats of John F. Kennedy and FDR, they're still around. They're looking for a way out. That's why we have that walk-away movement. They're just walking away from the party. And so I think if we go down that road and we Campaign for America, bring that proposal to you as a chairman and other chair people in New Jersey and around the country, we just may be onto something. So before we continue in the next few minutes, Tim, this is why I've asked everyone to get their pencil and paper, and we're going to post this. But the reason why I asked you to get something to write this down is I don't know if this is going to stay on Facebook. Certainly, hopefully it's going to stay on YouTube and Twitter. We're asking everyone to email us. It's mail, MAIL, at C4, the number 4A, USA.us. I'll say it again. That's mail, MAIL, at C4, the number 4A, USA.us. We're asking people all over the world to email us. We want your email because when we get shut down, it's not a matter of if right now, it's a matter of when, we'll be able to stay connected to you. We're looking at investing a lot into building, we do have a studio, but we're looking to build upon some social media platforms where we're going to be able to come on almost like a TV station, live streaming into your computer. We're looking at some podcast platforms and other platforms, but Tim Howe said it earlier, folks. The only way that we are able to make change and to get people aware of what's happening is what we're doing on the air. Tim, no multimedia outfit, no mainstream media network would allow us to do what we're doing now. Don't you think?
No, I don't think so. And it's always puzzled me, and maybe you guys might have the answer to this. I mean, there's a significant amount of resource on the conservative side. I mean, there's money, there's people, there's tens of millions of people in America alone on the conservative side. Why are we using their platforms? I can tell you that what's going to change here soon, and you're going to be part of it, is that there are going to be other platforms, and Twitter's stockholders and Facebook shareholders are going to be a little PO'd because, well, shows like this that have a lot of followers are going to be on another platform. And I've got, by the way, I'll offline, I've got one for you.
Great. Well, you're right. And my wife and I had this discussion. Why are we on their platforms? But getting back to the issue of conservative candidates, and Tricia, you and I've had this discussion. Tim, when candidates are chosen to run for office and they give us their conservative values and they're going to advance a conservative agenda, what is most disturbing, and we've seen that here in New Jersey more often than not, is when we select candidates to run for office, they're no longer conservatives. They're beginning to compromise on the Second Amendment. They compromise on the right to life. They compromise just about on every single thing that we see in our conservative platform. And I've got to tell you, recently, seeing what is happening with the president, I'm really disturbed at individuals, not only here in New Jersey, but around the country, who were elected to office. They're up for re-election, and they're distancing themselves from the president. Why? Well, this is what I hear. They don't want to offend the left. They don't want to offend or inflame them more to come against them. My goodness, when I was a commander in the Navy, a detective lieutenant in law enforcement, when my commanding officers went into combat, we were trained this way. You stand with them. You don't take the life preserver off of their chest and put it on yourself and jump overboard. You stand with them. And what we see today in our party is that Republicans, establishment Republicans, are teaching us that they're only going to stand for themselves. But now, grassroots Americans, grassroots Republicans are not going to stand for that anymore. And it's a blessing. I'll tell you, I'm reading the feed. People are telling me, and I've got a special feed here. I think we've got another record-breaking night. But people are telling me, what? Oh, here's one. Let me read it right here. What a refreshing thing to see a Republican like the gentleman you have on articulate what you're articulating.
Thank you.
Well,
I appreciate that, Steve. And here's what I said to the conservatives I was with the other night. Look at it this way: a grassroots constitutionalist, like I said, who I got actually that year, I got 2 copies of Atlas Shrugged for Christmas, one from my late great uncle Pat and one from my father, is now a party chair in New Jersey. And I can tell you that it's almost like we've infiltrated in a way, but it's about having the doors open. It's about having someone there who's willing to be checks and balances. When someone campaigns as a conservative to run for state assembly, say in the 23rd legislative district, or the 21st, and then they go native on you, it's up to us to be the check and balance on that. This is now, the Constitution doesn't go to sleep over Christmas holiday. It doesn't go to sleep in summer when I go down to the shore. It's 24/7, 365. And what you're doing, what Tricia does, and what a lot of the people who are watching this do, they need to keep doing, because people can get away with that because we let them.
And we need not to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing to say.
And
Tim, before we wrap things up, share with us about Somerset County, what your organization's doing. And look, I know we've got hundreds of people from your county watching. So any words to them?
I hope so. Thanks, Steve. And I thank both of you for having me on. I mean, I know a lot about you, and I'm really happy to be becoming friends with both of you. Somerset County is in Central Jersey. And yes, make no mistake, there is a Central Jersey. It's at the heart of New Jersey, 340,000 residents here. It's one of the most educated, here's the challenge. It's one of the most educated counties in the country. And the town I'm in is the most educated town in that most educated county, but there are enough of us who are too smart by half. It's home to Big Pharma. There are a lot of commuter towns used to commute to New York City back before it became a science fiction movie in there. And Somerset County was governed by Republicans for 50 years. And a Somerset County Republican is going to be conservative on fiscal issues for sure. Good stewards of the public dollar. And we have towns, Bernards Township, who has no debt. I mean, can you imagine that?
That's remarkable. So where are you now? We only got about a minute left. So if you could share with us your vision and where you're headed with the Somerset County GOP.
We're going to take our county back. We just had a quick slide into oblivion at the county level. We'd have no elected Republicans in the building that we built. And we're going to start taking the county back. We're going to, by welcoming conservatives, by focusing on the grassroots. Yes, I'm going to raise money. So yeah, somebody's going to get fundraising letter from me. And we're going to do it with the help of conservatives. And there's, people who aren't as conservative, because if Somerset County goes down, Steve, New Jersey's down for the count.
Well, Tim, the good news is you're going to do it with the help of Campaign for America. You're
Thank you.
a stand-up guy. Boy, Tricia, what a breath of fresh air. That certainly gives hope to people not only here in New Jersey, but around the country, because he's in a position of influence and power. Tim Howes, thanks so much for joining us. And hey, look, we're going to have you on again. So I thank you for joining.
I enjoyed the heck out of it. Good night, Tricia. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
You too, Tim. Good night. Thanks for being on.
Tricia, there is a true American patriot, true gentleman. And by the feed, it's a pleasure to have him on. People were excited about that. Now, those of you who are watching, and Tricia, you're going to be shocked and stunned when we have the numbers tonight. I think they're going to surpass last night, but who knows how long we're going to be on the platform. Mail, here's the email. Please start emailing us, mail at C, the number 4A, USA.us. Mail at C, the number 4A, USA.us. Now, what can you do? We get this question all the time, every day, and we'll continue to share this with you. What you can do is this, folks. You could sit around the table, as Ronald Reagan said, have a conversation with your friends, your neighbors, your family, and think about what can you bring to that table? What can you do to help America? Maybe our friends in Scotland who are watching, in Australia and in other countries who have been in touch with us. Well, you may have the same challenges we're facing. So you can use what we have, what we're going to give to you, no cost. There's no fees attached to anything we do. You can use this as a guide in order to organize from your dining room to your neighborhood, to your school district, to your city, state, and to your federal government level representatives. It's called Operation Red Storm Rising. It's a toolkit, folks. It's right here, okay? And this is presently being revised because we're going to have a lot more information on there on how you could come together as an individual, just an individual grassroots citizen of America, Scotland, Australia, or whatever, but as a grassroots patriot, American patriot in our case. The guide's right here. And included with this guide, we're giving you the opportunity to contact us, and you could have people in your dining room or wherever you live on Zoom. We will come into your living room or your dining room or wherever you are. We will come via Zoom and talk with you live. No recordings. We'll join you at the table and we'll answer questions and we'll help you organize. Tricia, nobody is doing what we're doing. No one has offered that to anybody, at least I know of in this country, than Campaign for America. And this is what the people are yearning for. They want leaders. They want leaders to step up, and they want them to take the positions that they so value. They want leaders like Tim Howes. This guy is a chairman of a very influential and a very strong county seat here in New Jersey. And it's a beautiful county. He's got a big job ahead of him. But you know what I like about this guy? He didn't budge on any of his positions. He stood true to what he believes in. He didn't blink an eye. There's where you can tell who's a true American patriot and a conservative versus those who are politicians. This guy's not a politician. What you saw tonight was a real true American patriot who the good Lord put in a position to help this country, let alone help our state. And those of you who are viewing us, you know what? Maybe you got the call to run for office, or at least the call to organize. So what do you think of that, Trish? What do you think of now? We've not only heightened awareness, but you and I have said, let's look at this as an opportunity. All things are not dark. Listen, Joe Biden promised us a dark winter. Well, you know what Campaign for America is promising everyone, including conservatives like Jim Jordan, like Ted Cruz, like Ron DeSantis in Florida, and like President Donald J. Trump. Yes, I mention him because he is still sticking to his guns. all of these people, including those of us in this massive movement now, are, while Joe Biden promises a dark winter, we're promising America a sunrise to make sure that those sun rays still shine on Ronald Reagan's shining city on a hill. Tricia.
Oh, beautifully said. And you know how much I love the sunrise of a new day. That's actually my tagline, a new day for New Jersey. And it's going to be a new day all across America because our passion is around our policy and our commitment is to our Constitution. And it has been such a pleasure for me to get to know folks like Tim Howes. Tim and I have known each other for a couple of years now. It's so encouraging to hear these voices that are rising up. And it's all across the country and all across the world. As you said, we welcome new countries and new voices and new perspectives almost every night. Slante to our new viewers from Scotland. And we're going to put this cause ahead of us, and we're going to march to where it leads. That red storm rising, it's an allegory. We have to get away from, we get pushed back and say the storm. Well, you know what? It's about a storm of ideas and ideals. And as we put our passion to that policy, that's what 74 million Americans voted for. And we're not going to abandon that cause. In fact, we're emboldened by it, and we're going to make sure that that new day is realized for every American that listens to us and beyond.
And folks, remember what we shared with you last night. You do know that I am a former member of the President's Advisory Board, and we do still meet and have discussions. But what I've been asked to convey to you is to please do not get involved in any violent protest, any violent acts. Please do not go to any protest where there's even a rumor that there's going to be violence. Now, you might say, but then they win. No, they don't win. They do not win. They're not going to win. We're going to win. But we don't want to give them the tools, the weapons they need to make it appear that we lose. And what I'm saying is, folks, look at protest peacefully. I recommend that, but make sure you're with a group of people, you have a buddy system set up. And if anybody starts to break windows, throw rocks, fight with the police, you got to get out of there. Because by you being there, a couple of things could happen. One, you're endangering your life and maybe the life of others. Two, we're certainly endangering the lives of police officers. And Tricia, the one thing I try to get off to people when they say to me, yeah, but you're telling us to cut and run. No, because when the good guys leave, the only people left are the bad guys. And it makes it much easier for the police to get the bad guys. Because Tricia, what the bad guys do, they'll throw a rock, they'll assault a cop, they'll throw a firebomb, and they'll blend into the crowd of good guys. So you can be terrifically helpful to law enforcement if you just back off and go home, if you see violence. Now, if you go to a protest and it's peaceful, and there's been many of them, well, there's been an overwhelming majority of them, and I've said that all along. You could prove that the President of the United States did not incite this, because out of the thousands of rallies he's had, there hasn't been anything like this. We'll talk about that tomorrow night, how new information is coming out that this was well planned and well orchestrated by bad actors. We'll get into that tomorrow night, but I plead with you, especially this weekend, as we go towards the inauguration, don't put yourself in harm's way. We need you. We need you to do what we talked about tonight. We need you to get involved, empower yourself, empower your friends and neighbors. And when we confront, and I'm not saying in an aggressive way, when let's say we use the word engage, okay? When we engage those people that we elected to office about the policies that they let us down on, what I'd like you to do is what I did, show them the door. Just show them the door. They're not going to get any second chances. They lied to us. They compromised on their principles. It's time to show them the door. And make sure that if you want to run for office, or you know somebody who wants to run for office, get in touch with us. We have the resources and we have the power. And we have God Almighty. I really believe that, because we believe in God. We pray for wisdom. We're not perfect. We foul up sometimes, but I know one thing. I take comfort in knowing is that I have a God above who will say, you know what? Take a step back, take a deep breath. Let's talk about this. Tricia?
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I'll just reiterate what our president said last night. We are a movement of law and order. We are a country of law and order. And let's put our passion behind what we have to accomplish at the voting booth. We have to vote these people out who are not representing our constitutional conservative values. That's the prize that we have to keep our eye on and be safe. Again, First Amendment protects our right to assemble, but never, ever put yourself in the way of anyone who is clashing with anything that could conflict with law and order. We are about better and more than that.
All right, we are streaming live. I'm surprised we lasted this long on Facebook. I'm pretty sure they're going to take this down after we're done. We're streaming live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. Now, here's the email again, and I'm asking you for your email. It'll help us stay in touch with you. Folks, we got close to 20,000 followers on Facebook. That's a lot. We've got hundreds on YouTube, and we're asking you, and we will ask you to subscribe. You know that's free. But the way that we can get this information to you is to email you. And then there are other social media platforms like Rumble and CloutHub. I'll be meeting with the CEO, hopefully, of CloutHub soon. And perhaps, as Tim House said, maybe some millionaire, billionaire conservative will say, you know what we've got to do is build our own platform. So here it is, all right? Mail, M-A-I-L, at C4, the number 4, A, USA.us. Mail at C4AUSA.us. We'll post it when we post this, but if they take it down, at least you'll have it in writing. That's it, folks. It's been a pleasure. Certainly an honor, and thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back here, hopefully, the Lord willing, at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night live. If we're not here, we're going to be on YouTube, and we're going to be on Twitter, and we're going to be working on building some other platforms as we move forward. But please, don't let this word dark winter trouble you anymore. All right? I mean this, folks. We are the greatest country, the United States of America, on the face of the earth. Why? Because we have a country that was founded on the Constitution, which was founded on many, many, many biblical principles that our founding fathers loved and revered. Every single challenge we had since 1776, we met that challenge and we won. We won, we won. We won against every imaginable force against us. And we're going to win against this terrific force of evil called socialism and communism, believe me. We pray together, we stay together, and we win. Thank you for joining us. See you at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night here on Campaign for America. And remember, what is the chief end of man? It is to love, and it is to glorify God forever. See you tomorrow night.